Hello again and welcome to another production of Manna from Heaven Ministries. It is an honor to be in your living room this afternoon, and once more it's also a delight to have my co-host Miss Brittany Scott again. We've been kind of away for a little while, but we're back on our set schedule. And so Brittany, we have an exciting evening for the people tonight, don't we?
Yes, we do. You know, it's been quite a while since we've been in here, so it's nice to come back with a bang, so to speak.
Well, if you've been listening to the news, you know that the talk of the town seems to be what President Trump is doing as we speak. There seems to be a lot of talk about what's happening with Russia, and of course he's right now in the midst of a visit in the Middle East. Spent some time with the Saudi Arabians, and now he's just visited the Pope, and he was in Israel for a little while. And there are so many questions in the political climate, and for those of us that are in the believing community, in the church community, we're also watching what's happening because there are a lot of prophetical implications. You have Russia and the United States, and you have the Catholic Church involved, you have Israel, everything kind of swerves around Israel. Well, what an honor it is this afternoon to have in our studio a lady who has a phenomenal testimony. She and her husband, we have Oxana Eliahu and her husband Boaz with us, and Oxana has a powerful testimony. She was actually in communist Russia, living in the city of Leningrad, which is now called St. Petersburg, and because of the communist persecution and some of her background, and I'm not going to get too far into it, I'll let her share a little bit of her testimony, but her family were forced to flee. She wound up in Italy for a while, and then she spent some 20 years, I believe, in the land of Israel, discovering her Jewish roots, her Hebrew roots, and now she is traveling around the nations sharing her testimony. And it is a phenomenal testimony, by the way. And we've got a lot of things we want to discuss with you, so won't you pull up a chair and come in and sit down with us for a few moments? We have got to talk. Boaz,
yes,
you have a lovely wife. And we've
Thank
just
you.
really enjoyed meeting you two this afternoon. And so I'm just going to ask you kind of to kick it off and explain why you're here in the Pacific Northwest.
We travel around the nation as well as Israel and other countries as well. And we share about how important it is to, the sign of the times is to get things in order and be prepared to meet the Lord Jesus when he comes, to meet Yeshua. And he can come at any time, we believe. That's what the prophecies tell us in the Bible. So we just try to get people to be aware of that and to get their life in order and to make sure that their relationship with Yeshua, with Jesus, is like it should be and like they would want it to be, rather than to have him as a stranger in their life.
Amen.
Wow.
Well, it's interesting because one of those predominant signs of the last days, and all of us, I believe, can agree, is that he said he would gather his people from the nations. And here, you just spent the last week, in the last Sabbath, you were in what was formerly a Russian Orthodox congregation who are now Messianic Hebrew roots. And I know that was exciting for you because that's exactly what your background is. You came out of the Russian community, being in communist Russia. And of course, I know at the time, if I understand correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't have really a religious background initially when you were in communist Russia, right?
No, I didn't have any religious background at all. My parents never told me about God. I never seen a Bible in my life, being in Russia for more than 25 years. So I was, I finding out that there were churches then, but we never had access to any information or anything. So I even hated to be Jew because I didn't understand my identity at all. I didn't understand why should I be this kind of bad word, because in Russia it was not fun to be Jew.
Right.
So I had no clue. I absolutely was a secular person, and I say that I was absolute atheist.
That's amazing. That's really amazing because in just our recent lifetime, within the last 30 years, you were in communist Russia. We saw what happened. The USSR disintegrated. And we saw the walls fall there in East Germany, and now we're seeing the polarization in the Middle East around the nation of Israel. And as it has been for multiple generations, Israel's been the focal point of history, and it's been the focal point of the activity in the nations, but it seems like it's really a hotbed today. And here we are talking to someone who was a Jew, didn't really understand her roots, but now she's, for lack of a better term, awakened to who she is. Brittany, that's pretty phenomenal, wouldn't you think?
I think so, and I think that's one question a lot of people probably would have is, you said you were in Russia, you didn't understand who you were and why should I identify as this, because it's something that seemed as if it was bad. But this transformation, obviously, it's taken in your life where you've accepted your identity. How has that changed your life and this journey that you've been on?
It changed just absolutely from one, the extreme to another, I would say. But it's also, I would like to say that you said I was a Jew. I am still a Jew, okay? Right. So it's a very important point, because many people think that, as soon as you believe in Yeshua, you are not a Jew anymore. And for sure, I was a different person. I didn't know even the standards of God. I didn't even believe that God exists. I actually didn't care at all. So he was the one that pursued me. Wow. He was the one that showed the love to me, and he's the one that actually pressed on me and put me in a very, very hard situation. And sometimes, we don't like this situation. So we really want to get out and don't understand. But I praise God for this difficult time that I had to go through. Because this was the only way for me to stop and think and to choose the right thing.
Wow.
I mean, it's tremendous what God has done in my life.
Well, I can't even begin to fathom some of the things that you've been through. I do know that, again, one of the major things in the news today is the issue, if you will, of refugees, people fleeing persecution in other parts of the country, from Mexico and from some of the Arabic nations, and they're seeking an opportunity here in the United States to start their life over again. And that's similar to what you did. You were fleeing communist persecution in Russia, wound up in Italy, I believe, for a number of years, and then from Italy to Israel?
Yeah, I wanted to go to America, and I hated even to think about going to Israel. But everything, all my plans, all my ideas, all my desires were kind of, ruined. Right. Everything was a different plan, and again, I didn't know that someone there upstairs, above, they had another plan for me, because I have my own plan. I didn't like what was going on. I was very upset and angry, I don't know, on God or whatever. Mm-hmm. It was really hard, because my plan was to come to America, to be rich, to have a lot of, opportunities, career, and so when I was stuck in Italy as a refugee without even enough food, it was really very hard, and I didn't understand again what's going on. But like you said, today we have the immigration problem, and it was then. Exactly. It was thousands of Russian Jews were actually stuck in Italy without any hope, without any, kind of way out. Because America at that time, exactly like today, they decided, okay, it's too many people right away, wait. So they decided to make selection and not to give the visa to every Russian Jew. I was actually sure that I'm so great, and how come America doesn't want me? I couldn't believe it, but I got refusal, which was a huge shock for me, and this actually changed. But again, it was a plan. It was a plan, because in Italy I met believers. I met, finally, it was just the first kind of encounter. It was not really transformation, but I believe that in Italy, through Baptist missionaries, the seed was planted in my very, very stubborn and stone heart,
Amen. Well, that to me, that's the most intimate part of the relationship that we have as individuals with our Creator. No matter where we happen to be around the world, Here you were fleeing communist Russia. You wound up as a refugee in Italy. You had a Jewish background. It was not a religious Jew, it was more of a secular Jew. And yet he identified himself and made himself personal and real to you. And you and your husband, Boaz, you travel around the nations and you sing to congregations, sharing in praise and worship, part of your testimony. If I'm correct, you sing songs in Russian, you sing songs in Hebrew, you sing songs in Spanish, and that's so amazing to me.
And English too.
And English, yeah. And here I am. I have a real southern drawl, and so you may need an interpreter to understand me. But to me, it just shows you how powerful that encounter you had, allowing you guys to become a bridge across the nations. And so I'm going to ask Boaz something, and I may put him on the spot.
That's okay.
How did you meet her?
Uh-oh.
I met her online. She was in Israel, and I was here in the middle of the country here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And we started communicating on the internet.
And
That's
it was
how we
impossible.
met. It was impossible, and it couldn't happen. That it worked out that we are doing this ministry now, but now we do this ministry, which was God's plan for us. We're very sure of that, and we all have. God has a plan for everyone,
Yes,
and
He
we
does.
need to make ourselves open to the direction that this plan may take us. While it may be the farthest thing from our imagination, it would have been for both her and I, that we were going to be doing what we're doing now.
Right.
But it just seemed to all fall in place. And now here we are, and we're trying to help other people to understand that God has a plan for them. God has a plan for everyone.
My favorite verse, Jeremiah
Yes,
29:11.
He has a plan for you. But you, it's not the plan that you're thinking that that you think He has for you, or that you want Him to have for you. But He has a plan for you, and you have to be patient and wait for Him to pursue you, I suppose, like He did Oxana.
I think so.
And me as well, I suppose. In our own way, it happened to both of us. So
Isn't that powerful?
We have actually, if I can say a few words.
Yeah, that's what I want.
We have
That's-
actually, if I can, this is exactly why I had to write this love story, not just with Abba and what God really has done in my life, but every time we go, we don't have so much time to share so much because the story is very long and very big. So every time they say, but what about you? How did you meet? And it's not just a love story.
Oh, man.
It's actually a powerful testimony, very encouraging. So I had to write it. Again, it's another story how the book came. It's a little different testimony. But our love story is really in the book. It's two love stories here. One is really loving God, what He's done, and how He, brought me through the miracles and in difficult situations. And the other one, actually, now I know. When first time people ask me to share my story, I said, like, what story? I just, I didn't know even that this story can be so powerful and so, encouraging and blessing people. It was just my life story. But once, they ask me and I share, they say, oh, we're not going to be the same. I say, what did I say?
That is so amazing. That's so amazing. I want, if we can get the camera to focus in on the cover of your book there, if you'll hold it for them. Jeremiah 29:11 is the verse we were just quoting. It says, and this is Father speaking in first person to you as an individual, and you may be in the audience tonight listening and maybe going through some sort of a difficulty in your life, and you may think that what's happening around you is just an evil scheme. You might be fleeing persecution. You might be a refugee. You might be someone who's immigrated here, or your status might not be what it's supposed to be. But Jeremiah 29:11 says, I have plans for you, and they're plans for good and not for evil. And the plan's purpose is to bring you to an expected destination, which is exactly the title of that book. And it's also here, I believe, in electronic form.
this is a 4 CD audiobook. So some people maybe are uncomfortable about reading a book, or some people are visually impaired, so they can't read as well as maybe they would like to. For whatever reason that you might want to hear it, it's word for word the same as the paperback book.
And if you're listening tonight and you wanted to get in touch with them, their website is Oxana, O-X-A-N-A, site, site.com.
That's correct.
And you can find out all sorts of information. And we're going to try and touch on that if we have a little bit of time this evening. They've got some wonderful CDs. We're going to ask them, if we get an opportunity, to speak a little bit about what they share in their praise and worship. Of course, I know you share your personal testimony, but you also have some wonderful CDs, and I'm sure the camera can get a shot here at the front of the table sitting in front of us, but you have some beautiful praise and worship. I happen to be listening this afternoon to Isaiah 53. You were singing in Hebrew about how Father is able to heal us, and you know, that always hits close to home. Someone that you know is going through some difficult times, and she sings the scriptures in Hebrew, and a lot of her praise and worship music is actually in English, Russian, Spanish, and some in Hebrew. And so you've got a consortium. You can just kind of come in like a smorgasbord and pick out what you love. But tell us a little bit more about the transition that you made once you met one another here in the States, and how you started sharing this ministry about your destination.
We first had to consider whether we were going to be in the United States or Israel, which now we decided to be in both, and we go to Israel for 2 or 3 months out of the year. We try to, and then we come here and minister for the rest of the year, because it's much easier to minister here, and you can touch more people's lives here than in Israel by far. So we come here, and there's so many congregations here, which one thing Oxana so appreciated here when she came to the United States was you can actually turn on the radio or the television and you can hear someone speaking about Yeshua or Jesus on the broadcast, whether it's radio or television, which she hadn't been accustomed to this at all, because where she'd lived in the past, well, in Russia for sure, it's so censored. And even in Israel, you don't usually hear anyone speaking about Yeshua or Jesus. But here, you turn on the radio and you can, or the television, and it's there for you.
You know,
so that was really refreshing to her.
That's very touching to me, because we take that for granted.
That's right.
You're listening here this afternoon, and you heard him refer to Jesus, and his Hebrew name is Yeshua. And I'm just going to ask Oxana to get real personal with us and share what it was like coming up, not having access to a Bible, not having access to church, not understanding. And you know, again, you could take a rock and walk out on the street and throw it and hit a church somewhere in this city.
Pretty much.
It's amazing.
And you can get out just about anywhere. And there are a lot of secular individuals, and we're not trying to infringe on your personal beliefs, but we do know that we have a right to worship God in this country still. But that wasn't so where you came from.
No, we were brainwashed, absolutely, from the very young age. They were telling us that people who believe in God, they're very primitive, stupid, and narrow-minded, so this, really not a choice. And we were brainwashed with the evolution and with a lot of, the communism ideas, which actually, even in my book, I write that a lot of communistic ideas, they're very good looking kind of. It sounds so good. It sounds almost like from the Bible. The only problem is that they took God out of it.
Right.
So it was, it was living in darkness and not even knowing that we're living in darkness.
Wow.
So I cannot say that I never was looking for any God, because I didn't have an idea even about that. Somehow it was, secular life. And I thought that I'm really amazing person, Right. I mean, I didn't know that I have so much, went out of the standard of God. I didn't know the standard. How can you know, something good if if you're just living in a normal? This is what the problem today. They're trying to make the things that is kind of absolutely not normal. They want to make it normal, and this how people are deceived.
Right.
So we were deceived, simply deceived. So when I saw these people, even in Italy, first time these believers, I was kind of surprised that they were they had some kind of light in there. There is something in them that were like attracted, and they were so kind to us. You know, when you're a refugee, nobody wants you.
Right.
No, just and they were really nice and trying to, you know, even talk to us. It was already impressive. So it was a lot of things that I was learning really by working. You know, like a child, you start working and you start looking and I believe that God knew, you know, my soul, that I'm a very emotional person. So I started with singing songs, for example. I didn't sing the songs because I wanted to, you know, sing to God, but I wanted to I had an interest. I was in troubles, and I wanted these people to help me. So I learned their songs to show them how I believe in this nonsense, you know, about their God. So when I was singing these songs, I actually was worshiping God, but not for God, for people. So, but it's all working, you know, it's a powerful thing. So, and then they were teaching us about, you know, history of Israel, or Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov. I mean, it's a long, long wait. It took me 6.5 years. I was very stubborn. It's a long, unfortunately, I cannot really share much because it's a long story and the details are very, very important and make it kind of picture very colorful. So maybe they will come this Shabbat and I will be sharing more.
Well, we have the pleasure of hosting Oxana and Boaz this Shabbat, this coming Saturday, which is the 27th of May. I'm sure that by the time this airs that some of you may not be able to see it, but if you're local and you're seeing it, and we'd love to have you in it. And the interesting thing is if you study religion, you'll find that people that are quote-unquote religious pursue their God. The interesting thing about the relationship that we're talking about this afternoon is that he pursued her. The God that we serve, the Creator that we serve, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he pursued Oxana. He pursued us, and he's pursuing you. And no matter what you may be going through, you could be here in the United States and literally be a refugee, someone who's in exile, out of relationship with him, and you could have a divine encounter. You have a destination, and he's wanting to bring you there. And I'm so grateful that we have the two of you in the audience tonight. Tell them briefly again how they can get in touch with you. And you have some of your music and some of your productions on YouTube as well, right?
Yes, if they just, you know, write Oxana Eliahu, maybe you both can spell it.
They can go to Oxana, O-X-A-N-A, at oxanasite.com. That's OXANASITE.com. They can communicate with us by email at that email address, or they can go to YouTube and see some things that under Oxana Eliahu, just spell it out like it is here on the book, O-X-A-N-A-E-L-I-A-H-U, and you will search that on YouTube and come up with many, many videos. You can watch them for the rest of the week probably.
And some beautiful praise and worship music. I'm telling you, regardless of your particular genre that you might prefer, you can find it there. You can find it again in Russian. You can find Hebrew, Hispanic. You can find it in English. It's a wonderful collection of spiritual music that will just bless you and touch you. And we'd like to remind you that as we close out this show, we're going to close it out with one of her special songs that she's chosen this afternoon to leave with you. And we'll have in the credits, we'll have some ways that you can get in touch with us at Manna from Heaven Ministries. livingmanna.net's our website address. And you can also see in the credits how you can get in touch with them. So we want you to do that. We have just about a minute left. If you can just kind of briefly sum up what your plans are here in the States in the next few weeks.
Our plans here in Oregon are to minister this weekend, and then we'll be heading next week. We will be going to Wyoming, to Casper, Wyoming, and we will be doing, we'll be there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday doing worship services. So hopefully they will be very blessed as well.
And then we go Arkansas and East Coast.
Yeah,
So
you'll be in the East Coast. Well, you'll be in the South and then in the East Coast. Well, it's been such a pleasure. I wish we had more time this afternoon, but we're looking forward to this coming weekend. We'll be able to have the privilege of your company, and we've invited the local congregations to come with us as well. We've got just a few minutes. Brittany, why don't you close it out and just tell the people how they can get in touch with us.
So if you're interested in these shows or anything else you've seen, you can visit our website, which is livingmanna.net, and you'll find all of our contact information, and we hope that we hear from you. And we hope these shows are just a blessing to the community. That's why we do these things, and what a powerful message to share.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Thank you for listening.
Sacred room of my heart, in the holy of holies of my soul, I invite you, Lord, to come in and to stay forevermore.